The United Kingdom will get its new Prime Minister in just a few hours from now, and Britain's next leader will take over at a time when the country is going through multiple crises. For starters, Britain is facing its highest inflation in nearly 40 years, with energy bills soaring and warnings of an imminent recession. By far the biggest problem that the next Tory leader will have to deal with is the cost of living crisis. Amidst an economic crisis and rampant inflation, Britons are worried that they will not be able to deal with the impact of higher costs on everyday necessities. Workers in the United Kingdom are also experiencing real-term pay cuts, with inflation soaring to above 10%. A series of strikes are also expected. Apart from this, the next Tory leader will also have to keep up with the promise of keeping Brexit safe. The next Prime Minister will also find themselves in a fight with Andrew Bailey, who is the Governor of the Bank of England. Both Truss and Sunak want to give ministers the power to review decisions by regulators in the public interest. The other issue that is waiting to welcome the next Tory leader is the future of the sprawling online safety bill. And lastly, the new Prime Minister will have to deal with the burden to reunite the Conservative Party. Now, for more details on this, we are being joined by Klesma Murati from London, who is a strategic affairs analyst and economist. And we are also being joined by our correspondent, Alex Isaac from London. Welcome to you both. Now, my first question is for you, Alex. There are a slew of issues and problems that await the next UK Prime Minister. How do you think that the Tory leader will be able to bring Britain out of this crisis?
I think ultimately it's not going to be a short-term fix for whoever gets the leadership later today, whether that's Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss. These problems have been escalating for quite a while, pushed forward. We've got the fuel cost issues via Russia and the war that's going on over in Ukraine. And there's all of these things that are coming together. It's going to cause months of misery. I don't believe that either leader can get in quickly and make a big change. We have Truss talking about cuts, tax cuts, but they aren't necessarily going to benefit the lower waged people either. So there's all sorts of talk, but yet no action has been put in place from either of these potential party leaders, as we've heard throughout the hustings for the last 8 weeks. And also don't forget that there's actually only, after they get elected, only 1,000 days left until the next general election. So once they're getting in, they have to get past a lot of red tape within their own party as well to push some of these potential strategic movements forward. But at the moment, the average person is struggling, whether that's wages, whether that's because they can't get enough cost of living, fuel, food. All of that is coming to the fore now. And I think it's going to be a huge issue for the intro of whoever comes in later today.
Right. Now, moving on to our guest, Klesma Murati, thank you for being with us. Now, the UK ranks as the 9th most powerful country in the world. How do you assess the decisions made by the next UK Prime Minister, which will impact the world and other countries?
That's right. So according to our Global Power Index, the United Kingdom ranks number 9th in the world. And this measure essentially measures the ability of a nation state or a country to secure their own interests. The US ranks number 1, Russia number 2, and China number 3, Singapore number 4. So essentially what this ranking does is it allows governments and also investors to better understand the trajectory of countries moving on into the next year. And this index is done every year at the beginning of the year. So what this tells us is that the UK, despite all of the externalities around it, be it the war in Ukraine, be it COVID, be it Brexit, it still holds a very, very prominent position in world affairs amongst other countries. And I think this position of the UK will stand and in fact perhaps even rise into next year's index, because although its fundamentals are challenging, its ability to withstand these current headwinds is still very, very strong. Although we have a situation like COVID, which has decimated supply chains, it's really put a spanner in the works, and the crisis in Ukraine has made energy prices go up. The UK government and the central bank has the ability to curb these things if the right policies are put into place. But just as your presenter said before, it'll take a lot for them to get it right, and we don't think that can happen fast enough.
Now, coming back to you, Alex, the UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is expected to become the next UK Prime Minister and will inherit an economic catastrophe. What do you think is Liz Truss's economic outlook?
Well, she's now saying that she's going to give £100 billion, put it into the economy. She's been quite clear that she wants to try and boost the UK economy from inside. So she's been talking about going back to fracking, trying to get some oil and power from the North Sea. These are all, again, a bit of a lofty ideas for many of the things that she's coming out with, mostly because she has said herself that no matter what she does, she's going to be going to advisors and seeking their help. And even though she has these great ambitions, they may turn around and say, actually, that's not really viable. For example, the tax cuts that she keeps pushing forward, she hasn't actually spoken to anyone on how this is going to work. Sunak himself said her tax cuts were an economical disaster. So there is going to be some concern around there. But hopefully she's got the right advisors at Whitehall if she gets in later today to actually push that forward. But generally, she's got a lot of other battles as well, because she has been a bit controversial in a lot of these hustings. She's already talked about Nicola Sturgeon up in Scotland, saying there's going to be no indie ref, and there's infighting within her own party. So she needs to fix all of these little broken issues. She has come very far since the beginning of the hustings, when people called her wooden and weren't sure that she was even ready to lead. Now she does seem quite confident in herself, but she does need strong advisors to help push her forward and to make sure that people are able to get some extra money, get some extra cash to help them through these are going to be quite disastrous months ahead.
Yeah. Now, Clisman, my next question is for you. What, according to you, is one of the biggest challenges that the next Prime Minister faces, and what to you is the way out?
That's a really big question to answer in probably in 1 minute, but I think the biggest challenge is what the next Prime Minister can't control. Because, okay, you have the ability to instill fiscal measures, and the central bank has the ability to install monetary measures. But what can you do for externalities like the war in Ukraine and bringing down energy prices, which is something that you are not directly responsible for? Now, Liz Truss, being the foreign minister before, has experience in dealing with international leaders, but it's unclear as to what her position will be and what her cabinet will do in terms of managing externalities like the war in Ukraine, like Iran, like the relationship with China, because these are things which the UK government do not have direct control over. And these are the biggest factors which has impacted the world over the last couple of years. So this, I think, is going to be the biggest challenge, despite all the internal problems that the Prime Minister will face. This, again, I think will be the next biggest challenge for the next UK Prime Minister, only because they do not have direct control over these things. So what's going to be very important is the ability to work with your allies in bringing together some sort of unified response to these issues, so that not only you as a nation, but also other countries which are your allies can also benefit from.
Right, we'll leave it there. Alex and Clisman, thank you very much for being with us on this broadcast.
WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.